Lesson 6.4, what we're going to be doing is absolute value inequalities. With absolute value inequalities, we're going to have an absolute value problem that includes an inequality. Now remember, we just learned inequalities are greater than or less than signs. Absolute value, that's going back a little bit, so let's do a quick refresher of absolute value. If I were to give you the absolute value of 5, what is the absolute value of 5? 5. What is the absolute value of negative 5? 5. Okay. So anytime I have an absolute value, the answer is always a positive number. Very good. Now take a second and look what I just wrote. The absolute value of 5 is 5. The absolute value of negative 5 is also 5. So I got the same answers here, but two different numbers were placed inside the bars. So that tells me something about absolute value. What if I were to say the absolute value of 4 is 4? What's the absolute value of negative 4? 4. Again, I got the same answer. Two different numbers were placed inside absolute value bars. So what that tells me is two different numbers inside the absolute value bar can have the same answer. And those two different numbers are always going to be positive and negative. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative of the same number. So if I were to give you the absolute value of x is equal to 6, and I want you to find x. Now don't say, well, the absolute value has to be a positive number, so it's got to be positive 6. No, we know the absolute value. It's 6. I'm looking for the two numbers that I can plug inside of the bars. Cole, what do you think those two numbers are? Perfect. Positive 6 and negative 6. Now, here's the thing about absolute value bars or absolute value problems that you've got to hear. Is everybody listening? You will always have two answers. Now, let me rephrase that. There are a couple circumstances where you may only have one answer, like, for instance, if it's an undefined or if it's a 0, the absolute value of 0 is always 0. There's no positive, negative version of that, but we're not even going to be dealing with that today. We're only going to be dealing with problems that have two different answers, okay? So just remember that. Everything that we do today and on your homework and what we do tomorrow should always have how many answers? 2. Very good. Okay, so let's work on this problem right here. The absolute value of x is equal to 10. So how many answers should I have? 2. And what are those two answers?
Negative 10 and positive 10.
Negative 10 and positive 10. Now, it doesn't matter to me which one you write first, or if you even do x equals 10, x equals negative 10. Or if you just write them side by side like I did with a comma separating them. It's fine by me as long as you have the correct two numbers. Now, what about the second one? What are the two numbers that x can equal?
Negative 25 and positive 25.
Positive and negative 25, or negative and positive 25. Do this one on your own. Mary, what did you get for the absolute value of x is 100?
Negative 100 and 100.
Very good. Negative 100 and 100. So example number 2, we've got something a little different. We have the absolute value of x minus 2 is equal to 5. How many answers do I have in an absolute value problem? 2. So I'm still going to have two answers. But because it is not just a variable inside of the absolute value bars anymore, those numbers are not going to be the same. For instance, we had positive 10, negative 10, positive 25, negative 25, so on and so forth. They're not going to be like that anymore. I'm still going to have two answers, but they won't necessarily always be the exact same number, one positive, one negative. So I've got to figure out a way, okay? How can I get two answers out of one problem? It's very simple. If you follow the step-by-step way to do it, it's very easy. In order to get two answers, what I have to do is I've got to rewrite this absolute value problem. So what I want to do first is I want to drop the bars. And by drop the bars, I mean get rid of the absolute value bars. So I'm going to have x minus 2 is equal to 5. So I take the exact same equation and I just rewrite it without the absolute value. But remember, I need 2 answers. So I've got to rewrite this equation so I can get another answer. And this is all you do. I keep the exact same equation, x minus 2, because I never want to change that. But instead of it equaling positive 5, guess what I'm going to have it equal? Negative 5. That's going to give me the 2 answers that I need. So now I just solve it for x like I would any other problem. I add 2, and x is equal to 7. There's one of my answers, because remember I need 2. I go over here to the other side and I add 2. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. So here are my 2 answers. Now here's the biggest mistake that people make when they do these problems. They say, oh, x minus 2 equals 5 and x plus 2 equals 5. You're changing the wrong sign. The problem that we start off with, x minus 2, will always stay that same problem. We're never going to do anything to change that. We only change the answer. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. And it's going to stay the same number. I'm not going to change the number. It's just I make one positive, one negative. Now you say, okay, how does that work? How do I get 2 different answers or 2 different numbers and it's going to give me the same answer? Let's plug it in and check it. Let's plug in 7. So I'm going to say the absolute value of 7 minus 2 equals 5. Well, what's 7 minus 2? Does the absolute value of 5 equal 5? Yeah. Let's try it with negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 minus 2 is equal to 5. Well, what's negative 3 minus 2? Negative 5. Does the absolute value of negative 5 equal positive 5? Yep. So see how those numbers, both of those numbers work out. Now, you do not have to show me this check step. I just wanted to show you how and why we get those answers. Now, let's go to the next problem. Step number 1, what should I do? Drop the bars. So I'm going to rewrite it. X minus 4 equals 8. And then I'm going to rewrite it. And what am I going to change about this problem? Very good. The answer, x minus 4 equals negative 8. Then I just solve x plus 4. So I add 4, and x is equal to 12. Again, I go over to the other side and I add 4. But this time, x equals negative 4. And there are my 2 answers. If you want to make sure you got it right, you can plug it in and check. And the last example that we're going to do today is we've got one other step to the same type of problem. There is one issue here that I've got to take care of. And who thinks they know what that issue is? Zachary?
The negative 5 outside.
The negative 5 on the outside of the absolute value bars. Here's the thing about absolute value problems. In order to drop the bars and rewrite the equation, the absolute value has to be the only thing on one side of the equation. It's not alone, because what is there with it? The negative 5. So I've got to get rid of the negative 5. Who can tell me, how do I do that? Valentina? Add 5. Very good. So I just add 5 because it cancels out, and add 5 here. And I get 2x minus 7 equals 9. And how else would I rewrite it? I'm sorry, I'm going to rewrite it like this. The absolute value of 2x minus 7 equals 9. So then I drop the bars and I rewrite it, 2x minus 7 equals 9. But I'm also going to write it like what? 2x minus 7 equals negative 9. And then I solve like I would any other equation. So Cole, what would I do first?
I'd add 7
Add 7, very good.
and divide by 2.
So 2x equals 16, then you divide by 2, and x is equal to 8. Am I done? Is that my final answer? Nope, I got to find the other one. So what am I going to do first, Brianna?
Do you already add 7?
Add 7. 2x equals negative 2. Then what do I do? Divide by 2, and x is equal to negative 1. There are my 2 answers. Now, if you want to write them differently like I did, or if you wanted to come back to the middle and say x equals 8 and negative 1, that is fine also. It really doesn't matter as long as you have both of those answers. All right, I want you guys to do this last one on your own. Okay, Kenzie, tell me, what did you do first?
Subtract 3.
Very good. We've got to remove the 3. So we need to subtract 3 first. And I get the absolute value of 5x plus 1 is equal to 11. Now this is when I do what? I heard it. Drop the bars and I rewrite it 5x plus 1 is equal to 11. And then I'm also going to rewrite it as 5x plus 1 is equal to negative 11. Very good. So what am I going to do here? Subtract 1. 5x equals 10. Then I divide by 5. And what does x equal? 2. Other side. What am I going to do first? Subtract 1. What is negative 11 minus 1? What am I going to do now? Now, I can either choose to leave it as negative 12 over 5 or rewrite it as negative 2 and 2/5. Either one of those answers are fine. However, I do not want your answer as negative 2.4. The only time you should have a decimal answer is if in the original problem there is a decimal, then it's okay to give a decimal answer, or in the instructions it says round to the nearest whatever number they want you to round to, okay? This is your homework for tonight, page 356, number 20 through 38, evens only. I want you to go ahead and get started on that.